The Pulse of Spokane is a broad show that showcases many different things in our community, sponsored by Local 29 Firefighters Union, Well Dressed Walrus, and Homes for You.
Well, welcome into another edition of the Pulse of Spokane, and today I'm joined by Tyler Vinson. We were just discussing here. He's got quite the resume, so I wasn't sure which association of his he wanted me to go with, but we're going to go with the founder of EasyApartmentSell.com as well as the CEO of Extant. Tyler, thank you for taking the time to join me here today. How have you acclimated in the past few months to what is our world today?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Happy to be here and see what kind of information and value I can bring. Lots of changes. Before we went live here, we talked about one of them, and that's been our walk-in foot traffic. I think that's probably been one of the most significant changes. We always needed someone in office prior to handle all the walk-in traffic that we had, but when the state mandates forced us to shut that piece down, we had to change our operational systems and how those things would be handled. And there's quite the ripple effect. There's a lot of things that you do when a customer walks in the door. So we had to change those things. And now we're far enough in the cycle to where we're taking a look and saying, okay, what goes back to normal? Like, do we bring in foot traffic, or what is a permanent change? And based on current state mandates, we've still got that change of no walk-in traffic, and it has led to a lot of permanent changes for us and how we deal with tenants, for example, on the property management side, and really pinning down appointment times for when we're having investors or landlords come in. So it's actually allowed us to manage that, and then we don't have to have that staff person that's at the front always there and available. So that would be one example of a pretty big change since the COVID stuff has come.
Yeah, I got to imagine that a lot of companies across the country are actually at a point, like you mentioned, of self-reflection now that we're 3-4 months into this pandemic and everybody has made those changes and adjustments. And like you were just mentioning, they're probably at a point where they start looking at, okay, so even when we do come out of this thing, knock on wood that we do we go back to the way things were, or are we better off with some of the accommodations that we've made? So you have your eggs in a few different baskets, but all under the umbrella of real estate investment. So for people that don't know what that is, or what the value is, or what that actually looks like, could you break it down in simple terms what real estate investment is?
Sure. At least for what we do, because there's a few different facets of real estate investment. We're in the housing section of that. So we'll buy rental properties, apartment buildings, single-family homes, and we do some commercial as well. But we buy these properties, make them clean, safe housing, and rent them out and manage those rentals. So we're right in the heart of tenants and job loss and all those particular things. And in my specific industry of the real estate investment, we could be seeing quite a change there. And a lot of that is due to people's inability to collect rent in some cases, or inability to properly evict tenants if they're unable to pay rent. So those are some major changes that are actually piggybacked on some legislation that's already been in place. So real estate investment as a sport, as I like to call it, is certainly seeing some changes. So fundamentally, buying a piece of property, working hard on it, fixing it up, holding it, providing good housing for somebody, making a positive cash flow, holding for the long term, and sometimes selling. That's really the blocking and tackling of real estate investment. Some other facets are potentially, say, house flipping. I don't really see that as much of a investment as a job part of the sport. But yeah.
Okay. So I would imagine that it's safe to say, being involved with real estate investment, that you have to be pretty dialed into the market of real estate. So with that being said, what is that looking like right now, or what has that looked like in recent months?
Yeah, that's a great question, and of course the cocktail party question is what's going on in real estate. And real estate's very regional, so you may see different things in different areas of the country. Some areas very depressed right now, some areas very very hot. But let's talk about the Spokane and surrounding area. A lot of pent up buyer demand in the single family homes still, so that's still a really red hot market in the Spokane area. However, for the first time in a long time, I think we're seeing some softening in the investment property or the rental property, and that's due to the uncertainty out there, whether it's the legislation or the COVID or some of these things. Landlords and real estate investors have really been enjoying peak pricing, and with that uncertainty, that's softening up a little bit out there, and I think it will continue. I think the big 800-pound gorilla will be the jobs issue. I think as we started talking about, you have so many companies, and I've talked to a lot of business owners that this is the change they've made in their operations, not just in real estate, but across the board. And that's when COVID hit and they had to retract a little bit, a lot of layoffs in certain cases. And then there was a lot of things that came to help, like PPP loans and other business resources. You had the unemployment. So what you have now is a lot of companies that aren't able to open like they thought they would, but have been paying employees with those loan funds. A lot of those loan funds are exhausted, so companies now don't have those resources. And you're seeing a lot of companies who are trying to open up but just don't have the business, whether it's a restaurant and they're 50% capacity only, or another widget selling business, if you will, that doesn't have the same demand. They're coming back to the marketplace and not going to be able to stay in business. So that's a real number to keep an eye on in real estate and elsewhere, is what do those jobs numbers look like as we come to the tail end of the unemployment, $600 a month, and the fact of a lot of these businesses shutting down. That, in my mind, will be the indicator that I'm following to navigate what is uncertain times.
Yeah, a lot of interesting stuff there. I'm wondering, and this might be a pointless question, but if you go back a few months ago before this really all tipped off, was the market in a similar state as you just described? Did this pandemic just, expedite the direction that it was already headed toward, or was it vastly different and this really just shook everything up?
Yeah, the market was really strong, and because real estate is a cyclical market, just like the economy, you figured there'd be some headwinds. You just didn't know exactly what it looked like, and it looks exactly like COVID-19. So that part's strong. The theme that's the same before pandemic as post-pandemic is the level of debt out there and how people are using that and what's going on, because too much debt or too much consumer debt is going to create a problem if we see any drop in, say, housing prices.
Right. Before we came on the air, you broke it down in a clear and concise way for me, but I was wondering if you could talk a little bit on Extant and then easyapartmentsell.com and maybe the difference in what those provide in service.
Yeah, absolutely. Extant Realty and easyapartmentsell.com are the two brands that I operate and that we use to help people involved in real estate. The Extant brand is designed for the real estate investor. We do property management there, and we help people bring properties to their highest and best use, help them manage them, and help people acquire more investment real estate. On the Easy Apartment Sell brand, we've really honed in on deferring and ideally permanently reducing taxes people owe from exiting real estate. There's a huge problem out there, and that is when you're a real estate investor and you've owned real estate for quite some time, and you go to sell it. Let's say you want to sell because of the legislation or COVID, or you're ready to retire. You're normally facing these huge tax bills from depreciation recapture and capital gain. So Easy Apartment Sell is a model I've created to help people reduce that tax obligation and actually permanently eliminate a lot of those taxes. It gives them cash they need today and will actually keep a monthly income for decades to come. And that's not typical for people when they go to sell. They're normally facing huge commissions, big tax bills, and then what do they do with the money, and especially in an environment like this. So this is an exit strategy where they can get the cash they need today, have their long-term cash flow covered, and really deal with that 800-pound gorilla that I'm calling taxes.
Yeah. Very nice. Before I let you out of here, I was curious, getting involved in real estate investment, was this something that you had mapped out for a long time? Was this a trajectory that you were on since you were born, or how did it come about? What about it really caught your eye?
Yeah, I actually had a good friend of mine bring me to a little real estate investment seminar. I made quick work of it, but he had me hang in there, and I just fell in love with the sport of real estate investment. I found out if you were willing to put in quite a bit of time learning some specifics and some effort into bringing properties into good condition, you could rent them and make some money doing that. So the education piece is what got me into it, and then just going out and buying some duplexes is how I got my start, and I suppose the rest is history.
Alrighty, yeah, it is awesome, man. Well, so people can check out obviously easyapartmentsells.com. It's kind of self-explanatory. However, I assume that Extant also has a website as well, or where can people reach you on that front?
Yeah, so for the Extant brand, it's extantrealty.com. And as mentioned, for Easy Apartment Sell, it's easyapartmentsell.com. And for the listeners, I actually have a book called Freedom Through Cash Flow. And if you want to contact me through my email, tylerv@easyapartmentsell.com, we'll give the listeners a free book as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for coming in. A lot of good information. It was a pleasure having you on. And you take care of yourself and stay safe out there, all right?
Great. Thank you.
That's going to do it for this edition of The Pulse, and we will see you next time.
Well, this is Doomsday in Spokane. We got about 40 firefighters and their friends and family handing out 40,000 cups of water as the day goes by.
It's a very good opportunity to see the public and support them and help them out and cheer them on during Doomsday.
It's one of the best things about Spokane is that we have these major events and the whole community comes together not just to participate, but to volunteer and show that they really care about our city and making our city look great.
This type of an event really is emblematic of Spokane because so many people get involved. We have 50,000 people probably running this race. Always has been a very huge event.
Right now we're at the corner of Broadway and Nettleton. It's the last water station before the finish, so people are pretty much dehydrated by the time they get to us. They really need our water.
The water stations are a vital part, especially on warm days like today. It's real important that we have the volunteers to help with that. Without the volunteers, Bloomsday wouldn't exist.
All up and down the course, there are people that are involved in this celebration. It really is a celebration of what Spokane's all about.
Welcome to Apex Plaza, Spokane's one-stop cannabis destination. Apex Cannabis features thousands of economy, value, and luxury cannabis products. Cannagear features hemp-based CBD products, glass, goods, and gear. Stop by 1325 North Division to experience the Apex difference.
This product has intoxicating effects and may be habit-forming. Marijuana can impair concentration, coordination, and judgment. Do not operate a vehicle or machinery under the influence of this drug. There may be health risk associated with the consumption of this product. For use only by adults 21 and older. Keep out of the reach of children.
The economy is getting stronger. Banks are lending again, and interest rates are at historic lows. Now is a great time to buy your dream home. The caring and knowledgeable professionals at Homes for You have been helping people just like you for over 20 years. They take the time to listen to what you want and will help you find just the right home in Washington or Idaho. Real estate is what we do at Homes for You, 928-5782, or visit online at homes4uspokane.com.
Thanks for watching. Ask the host a question, recommend a guest, or check out any of our other programs on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or SpokaneTalksMedia.com. Sponsored by Local 29 Firefighters Union, Well Dressed Walrus, and Homes for You.